Good afternoon. You're listening to My Conscious Dad. I'm Alex Urbina, right here in your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm in studio with my good friend, Kelly Sanchez. Thanks for hanging out with me, Kelly. I appreciate you taking the time.
Of course. Excited to be here.
So, you're one of the co-authors of my new book, Empowering and Inspiring Teenagers. And I really love the chapter that you decided to contribute, and it's the chapter where we talk about being affectionate.
Yeah.
And you're a mother of four boys, and I know that from my experience of knowing you and coaching you and being a part of your life, I've experienced you go through the process of really connecting to your heart and opening it up, and I see you be affectionate with your sons, and I was really excited when you actually chose to be a contribution to that chapter, because it really speaks about the essence of you and your ability to be a great mom and be a conscious parent. So tell me, in your words, what does it mean to be affectionate? How do you explain that to people, to other parents?
Being affectionate. I just think it's showing your love. It speaks different depending on just the individual child. Being able to show them so that they get it, so that they get that they're loved. I talked about the different stages and how as they grow up, like when they're younger, sometimes it's just a lot easier to kind of give them, physical affection. And
because you can grab them and
right,
do a little blowing on their stomach or tickle their neck.
And then they love it, and
right.
they're laughing and they're giggling and they want more and more, and they're just they love it. And then as they get older, I see it as more of a challenge, but I think that it's essential.
I look at the challenge almost like an opportunity to figure out how to reinvent myself, how to figure out how to get to the next level of parenting. How can I now figure out how to still hook my son's heart or my daughter's heart in a way that is their love language.
Yeah.
And we talk about different love languages. Not every kid responds in the same way. And so I think it's our job as a parent to try to figure out which son or which daughter responds in a certain way. And we got to figure out how to give them that.
Yeah, absolutely. And being, that I have four boys, I already know that they have different languages and they receive them in different ways. And, I know, like, for my second son, Lewis, like, time is just, he wants time, just straight time. It doesn't matter what we're doing, even if we're just going, to the grocery store or anything, but that we're just together alone, not with everybody else. But he appreciates that, and he feels loved when we're just together. So
yeah, a lot of times I talk about on this show conscious parenting, and I'm really breaking down the distinction of what it's like to be conscious. And for me, being conscious is just being aware, hyper aware. And when you're talking about you noticing that your one son just will accept anything that has to do with your time, tells me that you really had to be hyper aware and notice those kinds of things. You can't really be checked out or numbed out or distracted on to all the worries and fears that you have in your own life. You really got to be dialed in and watching and observing and really analyzing what's going on with them and what's working and what's not working.
Yeah, you do. I mean, I like to think about, I work, I make all these sacrifices, but it's for them. And so if I'm not paying attention to them and what their needs are, and if I'm just, caught up in my stuff, then I'm losing my game, and I want to be able to connect with them. That's the most important thing to me. And so I have to be able to be conscious and think, what is this one, what does this son need? What does that son need? And be able to think, how can I get there? What do I need to bring outside of myself so that they can get that they are loved? Because I don't want them to forget that. What's
funny is that a lot of times I will have clients, especially parents, I'll ask them to rate themselves, from 0 to 10 in different ways of being. And when it comes to like vulnerability, I'll have people that'll rate themselves really low. Most people think, okay, I'm not really that vulnerable, so I'll give myself a 4 or a 5. When it comes to love, people will rate themselves like 9s and 10s. When it comes to affection, a lot of it depends, but most parents will give themselves like a 7 or an 8. And I always think to myself, and I'll ask them, I'll say, okay, you're rating yourself an 8 when it comes to being affectionate. But if I had your son or daughter in the room and asked them to rate you, do you think they would rate you the same number? And a lot of times they say no, they don't think that they would, which opens now the possibility that you might think that you're loving and compassionate and very affectionate, and you probably are. But the question that you really want to ask yourselves as a conscious parent is how is it being perceived? How are they receiving it, or how is it being landed? Is my 8 landing an 8, or is my 8 landing a 4 over there with my son or my daughter?
Right. And I think it has to do with looking at them as individuals and how they see it. It's not just with children, but it's with people all around. So again, like if that's your language, if your language of love is, receiving gifts, and so you're giving gifts all the time, but that's not your child's language, they're not going to receive it like that. They're not going to see it like that. So it's important to be conscious and think about them and think about what they need and how they receive it. And it would be a good idea. I never thought about like checking in with them and seeing how do they, I don't know if they would even, they'd be like, what are you talking about, Mom? But, that it's important.
But wouldn't it be awesome if you had that kind of open dialogue and, you've kind of educated your kids, and you've done the little things like sitting down and making eye contact with them and playing those kinds of games when they're young. They get used to operating like that. They get used to being in a relationship with you like that. I think it would be pretty incredible to have that kind of relationship with your son or daughter, that when they are 12 or 13 years old, you can sit them down and say, hey, I want you to, let's give each other report cards when it comes to our relationship, and let's look at these different areas. And I think that'd be awesome for you to create like your own quiz or your own rating system. And you sat down and you rated each other.
I want to do that right now.
Yeah. And then you swap it and you look and you see where you guys are. A lot of times when I talk about, helping people create, success in all areas of their life, a lot of times I'll talk about, do you ever take a time out? Do you ever stop and look at your marriage and say, almost like in the Super Bowl or in football, there's always a halftime, and you go into the locker room and you look at what's working and what's not working, and then you do some self-evaluation.
Right.
You rate each other,
right,
and you get the feedback. And I think that's important not only for marriages but for your relationships with your kids, to sit down with them and say, hey, is Mom or Dad, am I doing a good job? And if I'm not, what do you need from me? I don't think that we give ourselves permission to talk to our kids like that. It's almost like taboo.
Yeah. No.
Or no one's taught us. I know for me, no one taught me that. It's almost like I was on this journey of either discovering it for myself or deciding that I wanted to discover that for other families.
That's what I see it as, that it's not taught. But it's in every aspect of our life. Like, it's in our work life where we have to reevaluate. I mean, just in work today, we got out a little bit early, but we have to debrief before we leave and talk about what worked, what didn't work, what do we have to improve on. But we just keep going on with our families.
Well, all great teams, I think, operate like that.
Yeah.
I mean, we did leadership programs together, and it was, we always sat hours afterwards analyzing what was missing from me, or what did you need from me, or where was the communication off. And if you look at all great teams, all great businesses, they do self-reflection, they communicate, and they're always trying to figure out how to get themselves to the next level. But it seems like when it comes to parenting, and I don't know if I'm right about this, but it seems to be my observation that most parents just sit back and rely on their laurels, like I got this, or I'm just going to do the best I can. And when it comes to your kids, I mean, who wants to just default back onto I'm going to do the best I can? It's like your kids. For me, my kids are like, they're my life. They're an investment. When you take on a project and you work really hard at it in business, and you have an emotional attachment to it, and it's not going the way you want it, or someone takes it over or buys it from you, and you're like, oh, that's my baby.
Yes.
You always refer back to that's my baby. Right. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into it. But our babies are our babies.
Our babies. Exactly.
They should be our number one commitment as a parent. And if they're not, maybe you should just look at the possibility or ask yourselves or live in the question, should they be? And if not, why aren't they?
Yeah.
I think it's important to really kind of look at that and see what's missing for me, that I just kind of sit back and just do the best I can, rather than really stepping up and playing at a whole nother level.
And I think that I do that. I do look at myself, but to bring the kids, to make it like a group effort, like a team effort, like what you're saying, where you have like report cards and you're looking at, how are you showing up? Or because if I'm thinking I could be doing a great job, maybe I'm not.
Exactly.
Maybe they're not. Maybe they're like, my mom don't love me. I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. But or how can I improve? How can I be better? There's always. I mean, even if it's a 10, then how can I make it a 10 plus? I mean, where can I always want to make it better. So how can I do that?
And what's pretty incredible is that I get, for the last 18, 20 years or so, I've gotten the opportunity to be in the training rooms with teenagers where they get to share honestly and deeply. And, I'm looking at some amazing kids and I know a lot of their parents and they're amazing. And it doesn't matter how incredible of a parent you are. Kids are still going to create their own insecurities, including my kids. My kids, it doesn't matter how much work I've done on myself or how much, I have, family meetings or making a real big commitment to having family dinners and connecting and doing all that. They're still going to have their own self-doubt. They're still going to have their own insecurities, their fears and limiting beliefs. But the question I think that I live in is what can I do? Well, what's in my best power? And I want to put my head on my pillow at the end of the night, knowing that I
gave it all you got,
everything I can, at least today. And then tomorrow I got to figure out how to reinvent myself. And it just seems like it's an ongoing, it's a rigorous commitment. But I remember consciously making that commitment when each one of my kids was born. When I looked at them, it was an honor for me. It was like God gave me this gift, for however long I have them to really teach them and inspire them. So I think at an early age, they won my heart. They won me over, and it was just something that I made that commitment. What really helped me was having that transformational training at 20, because I think that as much as I loved them and wanted them to win, I was doing the best I can. The transformational training opened my eyes to realize that even though I thought I was doing my best, there was a whole nother world of unlimited full potential that I could tap into. And then it introduced the beingness. Who am I being? And really tapping into the emotional intelligence. More importantly, the vulnerability. And I know you got to see some of that, as through the years of me working on being more vulnerable and bringing my walls down and allowing myself to express myself a little bit more. And I think that parlayed into me being a parent.
Yeah.
What do you think what are some of the biggest breakthroughs that you had in the transformational training, or even being on that personal development journey that really helped you become a better mom? What were some of the aha moments or the awakening? What was the biggest, I think, impact that you had?
Oh man, Alex, I haven't even really processed that. I mean, I started
because
when I was 18.
You're not the same.
I was already, I already had my son. So, no, I'm not the same person. And I think just me, that I'm responsible for what I do and who I am. I'm not just like floating, and
you live from the platform of I am responsible for everything.
Right. If it's it's up to me.
My parenting, my kids, I take full responsibility rather than look what you're doing.
Yes.
Or you're doing this to me.
That's been embedded in me, I think, from doing transformational work, because I didn't think like that before. I was again just floating, just being reactive, and just letting, well, this is how it is, and this is the kid that you're dealt with, or whatever. I don't know, but just being able to accept 100% responsibility, and that it's a choice. You're making a choice every moment of every day. So it's not just like, oh man, I messed up and that's it. You can still strive, get up, keep going. You don't have to just because you're not making a good choice, or just because you did something, there's no perfect parent, and I'm first to say that. But that you can keep striving and keep going and keep looking at where's your responsibility and what can you do to make a shift happen, to create what you want to create.
Not only are you making a different choice every day, but you're making multiple choices. One of the things that really woke me up in the training was realizing I'm always choosing. Every moment, every minute, every hour, every day, I'm making multiple choices. And had I not had that realization, I think that, I would still be living in the illusion that I make one choice, and then if it's not good enough, that was the end of the story. Rather than, no, if you don't like it, make a new choice, and then keep choosing and being a creator with my choices. Be committed to creating new results just by constantly shifting my choice and trying new things. And I think that's what being a conscious parent is really about, is looking at your result, and your result when they're standing right in front of you and, or they're ignoring you, that's your result sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Or when they get mad and they go in the room and slam the door, that's your result. So you're always looking at your results and asking yourself, wow, from the responsible version, you could ask yourself, wow, how did I create that? Or how did I co-create that? That's what responsible version looks like in the conscious parenting.
Right. And not just like victim, go ahead.
No, well, victim would be just blaming them and
they're acting like this. Oh, they're,
Yeah. And or reaching out, or, the common thing that I get is that, parents will bring their kids to me and they're like, here, fix them for me. And a lot of the times, I start telling the parents, the whole, analogy about like the dog whisperer.
I was just thinking that right when you said that.
Along,
yes.
Right? Yeah. Well, how does it go?
You train what do? You train the dog, and then you rehabilitate dogs. And you train the owner.
Right.
You know. So
yeah. And that's really what my model is. The same way. It's that your kids aren't. Your kids are whole and complete. They don't need to be fixed. There's just the byproduct out of your parenting style, or the lack of some of the parenting tools that you don't have, or maybe some of the minor dysfunctions that you still carry as an adult that you haven't really worked through. You haven't got through some of your past.
Your inner child.
Yeah, you haven't healed the inner child. You haven't let go of victimizations and the payoffs that you get for it. And you got all these dysfunctions that you don't even realize that you have until somebody calls forth the awakening to really put it in your face. And a lot of times that's a hard look to glance at, because it stings sometimes.
Yeah, because this is what you're responsible for, and you have to take a look at it. And sometimes the choices that you made and the actions that you've made, and it's easier sometimes just to say it's their fault or they did it. But when you have to take a look at it and be like, I take responsibility, especially when you hurt people, especially when it goes down the road for a very long time.
Yeah, and the victim perspective, it's like if you choose the victim perspective, you're basically saying that you're powerless, like you can't change it because you did this to me, or this is happening to me. Right?
Right.
The responsible version is okay, what part did I play in it? And if I played that part, whether it was full or partial, then I can actually change that or make a new choice and play a different part.
There's power in that.
There's power in that, because now all of a sudden the power is in your hands, and now you can actually re-guide it, you can course correct it, and you can start to actually get it down a path that's going to, give you the goodies and the fruits, and bear the fruits that you're putting the effort into from those choices.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, a very powerful wake-up call when it comes to conscious parenting. The chapter that you contributed to, it's, when you're talking about being affectionate, affectionate to me is you have to be willing to express yourself. You have to learn how to express yourself. I find that there's so many parents that don't realize that they're not an affectionate. They've lost the ability to express themselves. You can use words to articulate yourself or to communicate. But if you don't put emotions to the words, you're not really expressing yourself. You're just communicating. And a lot of parents, I can hear the music behind the words, and it's missing some kind of emotion. It's missing some kind of a magical ingredient that's not coming from the beingness. And I think that's a wake-up call. I think that a lot of parents need, is to realize that there could be some emotional intelligence that's not being released from within you that I think your kids need. They're yearning for that. It's like their spirit is wanting that.
Oh yeah, they are. Absolutely, they are. Ever since you mentioned that report card, swear when I go back home, I'm going to do that.
Of course you are. 'Cause that's what conscious parents do, right? They're always looking for new ideas, and they're looking to be challenged, and they're looking for other people that can open up a possibility that they can and say, oh, I want to use that. I'm going to take that from you. I'm going to borrow that because that's going to help, the connection with me and my kids.
Yeah, because I think that I am affectionate, and I think that I do show them love. I do show them how I feel, not just with words, but maybe I don't, or maybe not enough, or maybe they don't perceive it like that. And I want to know, is it getting to them? Do they feel it?
Well, what's cool about that is that you're acknowledging, I think, even in this moment, that their voice matters.
Oh, yeah.
And their opinion matters. And so let me, get off of the, parent pedestal that I might unconsciously put myself on. And let me get off for a moment. Instead of me thinking that I am good or a great parent, let me just ask my kids, let them give me feedback, and then see where the chips fall, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go to break. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here in your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.